So before I start today, I want to make a little bit of a disclaimer. I'm feeling a little bit disillusioned. I've been doing tons and tons and tons of reading this week on different articles on leadership, different books on leadership, and I gotta be honest, I've become a little bit disillusioned, a little bit pissed off, a little bit. I don't know. I feel a bit flat. I was going to talk about something else today, but I really want to talk about my what I've taken overall from these books, and it's not so much anything in particular to do with leadership, but more so about the people who are writing about leadership. I've looked it up. The first thing I wanted to say was about the so-called, if you want to call them experts, people who are experts. I'm not just talking about leadership now. I'm talking about in anything. So if you say there is someone who is an expert in I don't know, cardiology, someone who's experienced, they've got, they're expert on the study of hearts and how they work, and it could be an expert in something else. But I'm talking now more so the difference between a practical expert and a theoretical expert. So if you said someone is an expert chef, and you can't take that away from them, they are a chef, they can do it, they can prove it to you. What I'm kind of finding about theory is there's a lot of people out there who are so-called experts because they've got a PhD in a certain subject, or they've written a book on a certain subject, and I read what they've written, some people, and I just think you're an idiot. I just think some people talk bollocks. I really do. And I think that they've been down this academic road and they kind of believe their own bullshit now. I looked it up. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's someone who believes that they have performed a task well, better than what their results were. So they think basically they are better than what they are at something. And I believe there are a lot of people in academia, theoretical study, that are exactly this. Now, if I give you an example of, if there were, let's just say, 30 experts on let's say 10 experts on the study of women's the hormonal effects and how it feels to give birth, and the hormonal effects in the weeks after, and how it affects you mentally. Now, if you had these 10 experts all studied that subject for 30 years, and then I said to you, these are all the experts in this field, but then I told you they were all male, you'd be like, well, it's all good studying the theory, but what do they really know? So, if you had a 15-year-old girl who then gave birth, and within 24 hours she now knows more than all of these men who know only the theory. So I kind of feel like there are a lot of people out there, and in particular talking about leadership, I feel like there's a lot of people out there who aren't leaders, and they generally, a lot of people think they're leaders, and I don't think people really know what leaders are. They think they know what a leader is. It's maybe someone in a suit. It's maybe the way you look. It's maybe the fact that you are in a leadership position. It doesn't necessarily make you a leader. So if it's kind of like saying, if you put someone in a kitchen who had zero experience and you put them in charge of the kitchen, and their dad owned a restaurant, and this person who took over was just an absolute idiot, but the team carried them, does that mean that person is a great head chef? No. Are they even a chef? No, because they don't know how to cook, They're just, their dad put them there, and the team was already brilliant. So it's kind of, there are a lot of people out there, I think, who believe they know they are good leaders, or believe they understand the theory. But I don't think you can write about something unless you are it. Now, sounding like a complete hypocrite, I believe I do have a lot of natural traits towards leadership. And I only say this because I believe my childhood made me, gave me integrity and gave me a natural protective instinct, and gave me this kind of, because of my adoption, it gave me, what's the word? It's called oppositional defiance disorder. It's where you don't follow instruction, or you don't recognize authority. You just kind of like whatever. So you kind of make your own path. That you don't even. It's not that you don't defy just for the sake of it. You're not rebelling. It's not a rebellion thing for me anyway. I just don't see the other path that's already there. It's like everyone else sees in colour and I see in black and white. So everyone else can see the path that everyone else is taking, and then to me it's like I'm looking across the desert and there is no path. So if I think it's that way, I go that way. So I think all these things, that the way my brain was wired, is why I personally think I'm naturally good, but I also think there are a lot of other people who think they're naturally good because maybe they go to the gym, maybe they've been in that position for a long period of time, blah blah blah. So anyway, I do think the Dunning-Kruger effect is something that is an issue in the study of leadership and the theory. I think there are a lot of people who think they understand, and from what I'm reading, I just kind of think you don't really make sense. I read something earlier today, and it said someone wrote that it was if it was their definition of leadership. I was trying to think of the word. So it was, the definition is, if an individual can, it's when an individual can get a group to perform a task. So it's when individual is A, group is B, task is C. Now you could say someone's been put in charge of a group of business people. They've been put in charge and they need to perform a certain task to earn a certain amount of money in a certain amount of time, and they achieve that. Now you could say, oh, they're a great leader. So you have ticked A, you have ticked B, and you have ticked C, but you can also change it, and then it completely ruins that. So you could say the Nazi officer with a machine gun got the group of malnourished prisoners to achieve digging their own graves. That still fulfills the criteria of individual A got group B to perform the task C. So I think that's wrong. I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it is that individual got the group to perform a task. I don't think it's the task and the group performing the task. I think it's getting the group to perform as a group without force or fear. Getting them to want to do it. I think that's a whole different thing. But anyway, I do think the I've read a lot, and it's just been pissing me off this last week. It's really just got up my nose about. I just think there's a lot of bollocks out there, to be honest. So similar to the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is cognitive bias, is another one, which is the halo effect. Now I know the halo effect is generally about people, so someone puts someone on a pedestal. Now I don't know if this is the same name. I might be getting this wrong, but I want to say it's the halo effect, but for your team. Now, I kind of feel like this used to happen. So an example would be, long time ago, with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the Gracie family would set out a challenge where someone could come and challenge the family to prove their martial art was better. So people would turn up, a karate master of 30 years or a kung fu master or tai chi master or whatever they were, and they'd all lose. They'd all lose because I'm not saying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the best martial art in the world, but against the majority of other forms, if it is just that form against just that form, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu did win for a long time. The problem that if someone who's learned karate for 30 years picked up enough basic jiu-jitsu to be able to survive, then they might have a chance of beating that person who is purely jiu-jitsu. But the whole point is, in this, you have people who studied karate for 30 years. They then lost, but they were like, no, it was a freak. Let's do it again. Let's do this. Let's run it back. They do it again. They get taken down. They get choked out. They can't get their head around that what they're doing doesn't work. They're not. To them, it was impossible. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of the actual fights or the jiu-jitsu or the martial arts or whatever, but the whole point is, these people had a halo effect for their martial arts, for their thing that they'd put all their, I don't know how to word it, they committed all of themselves to this thing. They jumped in complete. They'd put all their eggs in one basket, however you want to describe it. They were all in. So to be able to turn around and say, would you look at that? I've wasted 30 years of my life. That is not something that people can easily do. So I find that there are a lot of people who, going back to these experts, they've come up with this theory that kind of got them a bit popular, and they were like, yeah, this was my thing. And if you turn around to them and say, well, you did come up with that thing, and a few people did say that it was good, like the ABC example I gave you a minute ago. But if you turn around to them and prove them wrong, they're kind of like, no, and they're not open-minded anymore because they've gone so all in on what they said, they're now fully closed-minded. I find that this is the same with people if you look at people's sports teams, or in particular religion and politics. So I know quite a few religious people who, if you try to talk to them about other religions, or you try to talk logically about their religion, they're very defensive and closed-minded, and nope, don't want to hear it. I can't consider any other religion because mine is right. I've committed my life to it. I've committed money to it. I've committed time to it. It has to be right. I can't back out now because I've put so much time and effort and energy, and they're maybe even respected within that community. They've got a purpose. They've got a role. It can't be wrong. So the problem you've got now is, for example, again, if you look at, say you got like a Democrat voter or a Conservative voter or whatever, who they vote for, if you then say to them, the person in charge of your party is suggesting genocide, they'll go, yeah, but I'm a Democrat to the end. I'm a Conservative to the end. And it's like, yeah, but you're not listening to what they are saying in that moment. You're so committed to being a member of that team that you can't think logically anymore. You've lost all logic. You're now not open-minded. You're closed-minded. So when you get so fixated on a theory or your thing, you can't then. You're not open-minded anymore. You've lost your open-mindedness ability, if that's what you want to call it, and now everything is, you have to go with what your ego says, and you have to maintain that kind of I want to call it fragile ego. It's not fragile ego. It's that belief that what you're doing is right. And some people might disagree with this, but I'm going to say it's incredibly arrogant of anyone on the planet to believe that their religion is right. I think it's incredibly arrogant, and I'll tell you why. For you to say that your religion is right out of the hundreds there are, and everyone else is wrong, is you saying that you are intelligent enough to understand what is actually happening in the universe. So you're saying you can understand what's going on. Now, to me, I think I'm stupid. No, let me rephrase that. I'm intelligent enough to understand that I am too stupid to understand if there is a God and how his mind would work, if it even is a thing like us. Probably not. It could be an amalgamation of minds. It could be some weird entity where it's just infinitely more kind of grand, and the brain power is something that we couldn't even compute. So if there is something, I'm not even going to pretend that I'm intelligent enough to understand what that might be or how it works. I'm aware that I'm compared to, if there is a God and he did physically make the world, then to that sort of power, I'm less than a worm. So I'm not even going to pretend that I have the brain power to be able to pick a religion and think that I'm right. I'd rather be open-minded and just say, I'm not going to pick a side. I'm not going to say there's not a God. I'm not going to say that this one's right and this one's wrong. And who knows? Who knows? I mean, I had someone say to me years ago that about it sounds insane, but he said to me about if baby Jesus, if you look at the Bible and you look at how baby Jesus was, his story, and the Immaculate Conception, or not Immaculate Conception, the angel came down, and God, well, the angel came down, and then Mary got pregnant, and then I can't remember if in the story he like tells her she's pregnant, or he touches her belly, or I can't remember what it is, but supposedly Jesus is the Son of God, and I mean we're all supposed to be the Son of God, or children of God anyway. So supposedly Jesus is born, he then grows up, lives 30 something years, performs miracles, dies, gets reincarnated. Right. Someone who I know, who I will interview one day soon, his brain is brilliant, I gotta be honest, but when I say this to people, they think I'm nuts. Now here's the thing, because I'm open-minded, I will not say that this is completely out of the realms of possibility. So he said, if you look at the Bible and you think that these people didn't have the words to describe what they were seeing, and you said, Jesus performed miracles. Well, what if, kind of like when we artificially inseminate a cow, what if aliens artificially, Angel Gabriel was actually an alien, artificially inseminated Mary, she gave birth to this human alien hybrid that didn't have the same sort of powers that, had advanced powers but looked human because they genetically engineered it, could turn water into wine, or even something, a tiny bit of that, but they were so, they didn't know how to write it, and then it got exaggerated and blah blah blah, and then all these different miracles happen. He got killed, and then at the end, 3 days later, he goes up into the sky in a ray of light. Well, what if that was an alien ship taking him up, and he was being brought back to life because they got the power to be able to do that? And I thought to myself, do you know what? If I'm being open-minded, it's possible. It's possible that is an alien story, and people have misinterpreted it, and Christianity has just been based on like E.T. or something. It's who knows? And the point is, I think it's very, very arrogant for us to say that we are intelligent enough to understand. I think, again, I probably annoy a lot of people, but I think religion is quite... I understand why people need it. I do understand why people need it, and I think it gives people purpose and a sense of right and wrong sometimes. I mean, I do believe, though, instead of doing something because you think that you're being watched, or you think you're going to be rewarded, or you think you're going to be judged, just do it because it's right. Don't be a dick. Just if do it because do something because it's the right thing to do, not because God is going to judge you if you don't do it. So I think that comes down to integrity, moral compass, protective instinct, all those things that I said, that if you knew there wasn't someone watching you, you know when people say, if there wasn't someone watching you, you knew you could get away with it, would you rob a bank? Things like that. Well, is it the right thing to do? So it's I think it comes down to integrity, and a lot of people think they're being watched because God is watching them, and it is a form of control. But if you just instead do what is right, that integrity will get carried in a round circle now on this whole thing. That integrity is what leaders need. You need that quality of integrity without someone saying that you're being watched. You just need to do it because it is right. I think that it's super important to have that natural integrity, but also have the humbleness to know that, and intelligence to understand that you aren't intelligent enough to understand something that big. And I think having that ability to be humble, and also being intelligent enough to understand that you don't know anything, because there is so much to know, I think is the key to progress. You cannot progress unless you understand, unless you're aware that you don't really know that much. You might be classed as an expert in something, but there's so much more to learn. There is always more to learn. You can never complete something. There's no like, oh, that's the end. Everything can always be improved or changed, or you're never going to progress if you think you know it all. You have to understand that you know nothing, and there is so much more to learn and so much more to do, and you need to constantly be chasing progress. And if you think you know it all, you're not gonna progress. If you think that religious book is the be all and end all, let's not question everything. We're never going to progress as a species. You need that progress. So, kind of a bit of a tangent, but I do believe that there are too many people who think they're experts who are fucking idiots, to put it blunt. They're not very clever. They think they are clever because they've been labelled as experts in this field. I don't think you can be a theorist on something unless you are it, or an expert on something. Again, you can when I've had this question about football before, where people have said to me, but how can someone be a good manager if they weren't a good player? And I'll tell you why. When you're playing football, what you're doing isn't managing a team. You're not managing the tactics. You are managing yourself. You don't need to be... Being a manager is a completely different job. A football manager is a completely different job to being a football player. Now, you can, if you're very tactically minded, you can end up being like the captain on the pitch, and those sort of captains do make potentially good managers. And there are people who never played football because they don't need to be able to do the practical thing to be able to understand how to manage, because managing isn't the same as playing. So they might not be able to coach that player to be able to be a better player technically, and what to do in an instant moment. You need really someone who is a bit of an ex-player to be able to teach you those split-second things. But the tactical side of it, the man management side of it, the morale side of it, the business management side of it, financial management side of it, you don't need to have been an ex-player to do that. So a football manager and a football player are two different things. The difference is, a leader is one thing. So either you can't study leadership and say, I understand leadership because I've read everything about it, if you're not a leader. That's my opinion. I'm probably going to regret saying that one day, because I've read a lot of good things from people. I've read some brilliant things recently. I have. I've read a lot more shit than I've good. Probably 80-20. 80% I've read, I've just thought of just rubbish. 20% I've read brilliant, and I'm gonna talk about some of those bits. But yeah, I've had just a flat week, really flat week, trying to get my head around some of these just new principles. But then I get so far through them, and I just think, this just sounds like shit. It just sounds like it's just bollocks. It sounds like, when I step back from it and I listen to what they're saying, it sounds like someone who is trying to understand something from the outside. That's how it sounds. I suppose it's like, it would be like someone trying to tell me what it's like to have been given away at birth, who wasn't given away at birth, and them telling me how it should feel. And it's like, you don't know how it feels. You might have spoken to 1 million people who that has happened to, but you don't really understand. And it's like that. It's like people who are trying to understand it. They're talking like someone who has read a book and not been through it. And that's why I decided to have this little bitchy rant today. So apologies, but I needed to get that off my chest, because I just think there's a lot of shit out there, and it's why I want to study it so badly. I do think there's some really, really brilliant people in leadership. I think there's some I've read some, like I said, I've read some really, really good stuff. I just want to study what those people say, but I also want to look at, because there is so much shit, what effect that has on people's view of leaders, because leadership is such a unique thing in that the followers' perspective of good leadership determines who ends up leading. So if the followers don't understand and the followers are misinformed, they end up getting led by the wrong person. So that's why I find it fascinating. Yeah, so anyway, that's it, done from me. I've got some cool stuff to talk about, but I think that's it for today. So thank you, and I will speak to you again next week. Cool, speak to you then.